Okay, fine. Something wrong with my webcam. As of now, we have done with income. Okay. So today's topic is um, okay. So today's topic is basically annual report. Yeah, the recording is started. Can you see if the recording is on or not? Can you confirm about the recording? Okay. Okay. Fine. Something wrong with my webcam. As of now, we have done with income statement. Okay. So we are actually done with income statement. So we know what is income statement and what are things come in, but what it comprises of. We also have done with the cash flow statement. Okay. We have also done with balance sheet. We have also done with equity shareholders statement. Okay. Fourth is we're done with. Now, the next lecture that we like to move on is the analysis of these financial statements. Okay. Now, so whenever you start with any sort of an analysis, right, it is quite imperative that you need to have a look at annual report, because when you talk about annual report, okay, one second, let me just get this clear. So when you talk about annual report, annual report is one of the most important document. I'm not started with the lecture yet. I'm just giving you guys a little bit of kind of a brush up. So annual report is one of the important document of a company, and which is used importantly by a lot of financial analysts and all. And any sort of statement analysis is not completed without annual report. Okay. So we'll try to round it off today by, let's say it should be sort of a 1 hour lecture, max to max an hour anyway. And then probably tomorrow or day after, or maybe next week, we will kickstart with the actual thing. Okay, so we have Apple's annual report with us. Okay, now when you talk about the annual report, okay, when you talk about the annual report is one of the most important document as far as all the financial analysts are there. You talk about Indian stock markets, or you talk about Wall Street, or you talk about any part of the world. Anybody who is analyzing any sort of a company, that company's annual report is quite important. Now, number one, annual report, when you talk about, is basically belongs to, or rather, it is given by public limited companies. So any company which is public limited company, it means any company which is definitely listed on the stock exchange will have to produce this annual report. And annual report is called as public document. Okay. Now, most of the time, what happens is that you are not supposed to talk to a company directly. You are not actually having an access to the information directly from the company side. And you also don't have day-to-day information coming from company itself. And that's where it's quite sort of problematic for an analyst to sort of understand that how you're going to analyze this company, or how you will be performing the valuation of that particular company. And that's where a report like annual report gives you all the details. Annual report is basically a report that can give you the clear-cut idea about company's business, company's strategy. When you talk about company's performance, that has to be there. But annual report is going to be one of the most important document that you will be actually looking at. Now, the problem is that how you should be utilizing this particular document, because this is going to be really important. And most of the time, annual report is the Bible for all the analysts there in the market. Now, if you look at, there is one more thing that I would love to explain to you, is that, so you have a company out here. Okay, so you've got this company, so let's say this is Apple. Okay, let's say this is Apple, right? And you have an analyst. You have an analyst or maybe you are an analyst who's working for Apple, then you have all the information handy. Okay. But if you're not an analyst, okay, or you may be an analyst, let's say you're working as an analyst, but you can speak to management of company. So you are still getting first-hand information. Now there is something called as third party, wherein as an analyst, you are a third party, or maybe as an investor, okay, you are a third party, or maybe as any sort of any type of investor, private equity, venture, whatsoever, right? You don't have an access to company's information because you cannot talk to the management of the company, and that's where I basically call them as third party. And that's what happens is that for all of you, your annual report is something which is very important. So all the projections, okay, that we do in the financial modeling, okay, all the future business sort of projections, right? All these things you will be able to get it from your annual report. And for that matter, when you get all these things at the end of the day, you will be able to sort of do the valuation. Now, once you do the valuation, what you understand is nothing but the intrinsic value of that particular share of a company. Okay, and then you sort of give three decisions from this: either buy, hold, or sell. And that's the reason annual report is quite important. Now, the first thing that you need to understand with annual report is that you should be looking at the annual report. But I mean, as I told you like earlier, you must have seen this, right? You have quarterly reports, you have annual reports denoted by 10K. Okay, so that's been the first thing. So when you talk about annual report, this is going to be the index. We're doing it for Apple. Okay, now this is the most important information that you have. I mean, I have taken it on OneNote. So you know, whenever you click on this, these are all the hyperlinks. You can click on it, you will be kind of routed or directed towards that particular page. So the first thing that you need to understand that annual report, you should be reading about your business. Rather, you should be reading about the business of company that you are actually analyzing. So if you look at the business thing, right? So that's point number one. You got to understand the business. Okay, you got to understand the business. Now there are two types of business understanding that we have. So we talk about the understanding of business. What happens most of the time, we understand this business from our perspective. So you will be understanding the business the way you want to understand it, and then there is understanding given by the company. Okay. Now you need to understand that anything and everything that is given on this annual report does not necessarily has to be true. Okay, that is something you need to understand, that anything and everything given out here does not necessarily has to be true. And that's where you need to use your own understanding. You have to have that thinking hat, and because of which you'll be able to understand, okay, you know what, this is what we believe that Apple is doing, and maybe this is the way I used to think that okay, the business is working in this way, but the way it has been given by the company in its annual report, it looks like a little bit different. And that's where you get to know. So when you start reading annual report, do not have any past baggages, do not have any preconceived notion, this is going to be the business sort of a thing. No, you read it through, that. Okay, now here if you look at the company talks about the business, so you can look at the company background. That's number one. Then what you have is company's products. Okay, they are talking about the 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max. That's what they're talking about. So why shall we know this? You should be knowing this because when you start analyzing this company, once you understand the business, understanding products of the company is also important because that helps you to understand the business very well. Also, if you're doing a financial modeling and if you're valuing the company, if you're presenting the company, even in that projection, it actually helps you. So how does the company make money? How does it earn? It earns by selling a lot of products. So now we know what are products that the company is actually giving. So number one is going to be iPhone, then Mac, then iPad, right? Wearables, home, accessories, right? So understand this, you will be getting to know Apple services, Apple products, little bit surprisingly, because whatever we know, like we only see on the television is that, okay, they sell Mac, they sell iPad and all that. But there will be a lot of things that we might get to know from this, the whole annual report itself. Services, when you talk about services, what they have, they've got digital content stores and streaming services. So they're saying that they've got app store, TV app store, books, music, video games, all these things that they're selling actually. Okay, this is what Apple do. That's number one. Then they have Apple Care. They make money from here. They've got iCloud. iCloud is like what yearly membership they have. They also make money from licensing and other services, whatever they have. So here you need to, now why it's quite important that you need to understand product mix very well. See, understand this. When you analyze a company, right, you will analyze a company, and whenever you compare your company with any other company from the same industry, okay, it's quite important that you should have apple to apple comparison, because apple to apple as in you should be comparing Apple with a company which has a similar product line. So you don't really want to compare Apple as a company to ExxonMobil, or you don't want to compare Apple with HUL. You're getting my point. So you also need to understand that what sort of services Apple is giving. So you might want to check with Samsung if you want to compare it with Samsung, Nokia, want to compare it with like Xiaomi. You need to know that, okay, what sort of products they are. If the competitor of Apple, right, if they just have mobile phones, right, and if they do not have any other sort of revenue earning stream, then it does not make any sense to even compare Apple with them, because they have only one product and Apple has multiple products. And that's where your annual report actually helps you to understand that yes, we are making money from 6 to 7 products, wherein if you're you're comparing Apple with any company which has only one or two product, then their revenue earning revenue generation possibilities are pretty lesser than the Apple. So you should be comparing Apple with something which is as good as or as strong as Apple. Then the most important part in your annual report is to focus on competition tab, or sort of an information given in that competition. This helps you a lot to understand the industry also sometimes. So this is another important point for all the analysts out there who wants to analyze the company. Okay, then probably you want to understand the supply components, you want to understand the R&D, intellectual property, business seasonality is something that also you need to understand, because every business has seasonality that actually helps them or impacts them. Even these are all the important points, because if you are doing a quarter-on-quarter analysis of any sort of company, then you might see that the revenue dropping, or the profits dropping in particular month. And why it's dropping? Not because the company's strategy is not doing very well or the management is not doing very well. It's just because it's a seasonal change. You really cannot help it. Now I'll give you a sort of an example. When you talk about pharmaceutical, or when you talk about pharma companies in the world, if you look at pharma as a sector, pharma wasn't doing really well. They were not doing very well couple of months before. But the moment you have this coronavirus thing coming into picture, pharma shares, pharma companies' profits started boosting up, started booming up. At the same time, you have FMCG, wherein the profits started boosting up. Why? This is nothing but a seasonal change, I would say. You're getting my point. There are sort of companies, they have, let's say, tourism, right? Summer vacations. You will see companies like, let's say, Cox and Kings, companies like, let's say Mahindra and Mahindra Tourism, and there are other companies, those who deal with the foreign exchange and all that. You will be seeing growth in their business, because that's a seasonal thing. So you also need to understand if the company has seasonal thing or not. Then the risk factor. This is again an important sort of point, because most of the time as an analyst, you will just be taking rather for your financial modeling purpose, you just want to copy paste the financials of a company, but you should not do that. You should always look at the risk factor, that okay, and these are the risk factors given by the company, but at the same time, this needs to be cross verified. You need to sort of cross verify, because as a company in their annual report, company can say anything. You don't really have to sort of touch on it, but yeah, you can sort of go through it, because the moment you understand risk factors attached to the business of a company, then you can probably understand the numbers very well. See, because at the end of the day, everything is all about, everything is about number. So when you look at the income statement, when you look at cash flow statement, when you look at balance sheet, you will be able to understand, okay, the company has already made a mention about something called as risk factor. And because of this risk factor, I can see there is a change in the number. Maybe the sales is going down, or maybe sales is going up, whatsoever. So that sort of thing you need to really understand. Okay, now then you go down, sort of check whatever information has been given. So here it is called as purchases of equity securities by the issuer and affiliate purchases. You want to have a look at it, you can have a look at it. This might include buyback or something like that. Treasury stock sort of this thing. Company stock performance. So this is given for what? This is for 5 years. Again, this is not really important, because stock performance cannot really tell you everything and anything. And again, it's not really important that you need to focus on stock only. Okay. Let's move ahead. Okay, the most important item. The most important item here in your annual statement is management discussion and analysis of financial condition. This is going to be a kind of a best setup, right? This is going to be your base to start with the analysis of a company. You have to go through this. There is no doubt about it. You have to go through this because here you will be able to see a lot of things. And then fiscal highlights. Fiscal highlights, even if you don't want to check, that's okay, because anyway you have your financial statements to tell you that. Product and service performance, again the important one. Now if you look at here, okay, all the products, iPhone, Mac, iPad, wearables, services. What are these? One, two, three, four, five. These five are revenue stream. You can just write it here. All right. These all five are nothing but these are revenue streams for Apple. That's how Apple is making money. Okay. Now we can see there is a cut-toward comparison between 2017, 2018, and between 2018 and 2019. And we can understand the sales going up, the sales going down. Now, this is something which is eye-catchy. Look at iPhone 1, 164,000 products. Sorry, it's the dollar amount. $164,000 million. This is what they've earned, and here you see 14% decrease. This is something, a question mark, that why it happened. Then what you have to check? You have to check seasonality. Okay, you have to check risk factor. You have to check management discussion and financial analysis, MDFA. These are the things that you need to understand. So this is something called as Kundali, right? This is like that, what we call it as Janma Patrika sort of a thing, which gives you a great idea about company all the time. But again, you need to be a little bit cynical. You don't really have to be, but you need to be a little bit cynical when you go through these numbers, because company will always try to tell you that, okay, you know what, this happened because of these, blah blah blah. You should be able to understand that whatever reason that the company is giving, is it really true? Is it really true? Now how do you understand whether it is true or not? Here I'm giving you a little bit idea about the analysis, guys, so listen to me very carefully. Now if the company says that, okay, we had this XYZ risk, the first thing that should come in your mind, okay, the company saying that they had XYZ risk, because of that risk the sales went down. Okay, let me check Apple's competitor. Let me check Apple's competitor, because is this the risk industry oriented? Yes, this is number one you need to understand. Is this industry oriented risk? I mean, is this risk for the entire industry? If it's for the entire industry, then Apple's competitor should be suffering from this also. But if you see that Apple's competitor like Samsung, Nokia, Xiaomi, let's just say whatever other companies that you have, if they've been able to do it, if they've been able to do their business very well, it means it was a failure on Apple's front, and that's how you can sort of cross verify. If the risk was pertaining, if the risk was pertaining to Apple only, then it's a different case altogether. If it was only for Apple, then probably it's a different ballgame altogether, and then you can sort of understand. So whenever you sort of do these things, you need to understand, okay, these are going to be your star points which you got to analyze, which you have to analyze as a financial analyst, right? So again, now if you go a little down, this is the best thing about annual report. You get explanation. You definitely get explanation for everything. So whatever things that they are putting on their annual report, everything gets explained in detailed manner. So you don't really have to worry about all the things, right? See, over here was the reason iPhone net sales decreased during 2009 compared to 2018 due to primarily to lower iPhone unit sales. This is something can't be digested. Lower iPhone unit sales. Okay. Now the question mark is, what was the reason to have a lower iPhone sale? Did your strategy went wrong? Was your pricing not good, or you had a tough time with your competitors? What was it? What was it? Or was there any sort of a global issue? Global issue, matlab global recession or something that you're talking about. I understand that if Apple is talking about these things in the year 2020, second and the third quarter, I do agree, because of the pandemic, people are not buying iPhone. You're getting from one. Then we do understand that. Okay, but again, something that we need to sort of focus on. Look at this. Mac net sales increased during 2019 compared to 2018 due to primarily to higher net sales of MacBook. Again, if you look at this reasoning as an analyst, we will not be able to sort of digest it, because they're just saying that yeah, Mac sales went up because we sold maximum number of Mac products. But then what was the reason that Mac sales went up? Mac is a very much costlier product. What happened? Like how it actually went up? MacBook, like Mac Pro, Mac whatever, Air and all that, they're costlier than iPhone. The users for let's say for iPhone are much more than the Mac, and the prices of iPhone are lesser than the Mac. Then why you were able to sell it lot but not the iPhone, right? Then comes segment wise or geography wise. You can put it as geography wise. So geography wise is something that the company will give you. Again, this is important for financial modeling, just to understand what sort of sales is happening geography wise. Okay, so if you look at, I think in Asia they are not doing good, but they did a good job in American markets. Let's move ahead. They will give you the reasoning. Gross margin, you want to check it. You don't want to check it, that's okay. Operating expenses given here. Then you will start with all. See, why do you have to understand this? Because for your financial modeling, we will be eventually doing the financial modeling, right? So you will be, you are actually required to do schedule of geography, geographical revenue, schedule of product-wise revenue. All these things you will have to do. That's something I'll help you to understand, and that's the reason it's quite important that you should go ahead with this. Okay, now couple of things: liquidity and capital resources. The information is given here. Again, the point that needs to be noted: everything that is given in the annual report is not necessarily an important thing for you to analyze your company. That's something you need to understand. But yeah, it's a very good read. You got to give a good read to it, right? Lease on all that stuff. Like if you look at lease and all, this is something called as operating expenses, right? So you can understand, okay, what sort of rent they're paying, what sort of lease they have, all that thing that we can understand. The most important, guys, by the time when I'm explaining this to you, you can sort of if you're watching this video, make it a point that you are writing all those important points which I'm telling you. Revenue recognition, the most important aspect which we will be learning in the financial statement analysis. How does a company recognize its revenue? How does it do it, and when does it do it? And that's quite important, because recognizing revenue means that you are actually noting that revenue down on your financial statement, predominantly income statement. You are actually writing it down on your income statement. You are recognizing it. The meaning of recognizing is basically you are claiming that revenue. Okay, so this is something is quite important. So this is something you will have to read by yourself to have a little bit of greater understanding on this. Again, all these things, all these important things, right? You can sort of have a look at it. Quantitative and qualitative disclosure. Most important thing. This actually talks about your economy, interest rate risk, foreign currency risk, hedging, and all the stuff. Okay. Then comes this portion. As a financial analyst, you should always you should be looking at consolidated financial statements. You should not be looking at standalone. Okay. Now, I hope you know that when you talk about a standalone financial statement means only that particular strategic business unit, or only particularly for that particular geography, or let's say particular nation. Okay, whatever, right? But when you talk about consolidated, right, it's a summation, it's an accumulation of all the financial statements of Apple into one. And that's the reason it is always required that you should always look at consolidated one and not the standalone. Now this is where you start with your financial statement. This is something, Apple's financial statement, which is nothing but the income statement. For your financial modeling purpose, this is where you take your data from. Okay. Now if you look at, there is a beautiful example that they have given: 2017, 18, 19. Okay. Likewise, you have comprehensive income. We've talked about comprehensive income. Comprehensive income is nothing but the money that company makes from sort of an other income for company. Okay. So again, they have done a bifurcation here, which is a good thing. That makes your life a little bit easy. Then you have balance sheet. Then you should be having cash flow, shareholders equity. Yes, you can go through this. This is what we have covered in the lecture. Then you have statement of cash flow, beautiful, so on and so forth. Okay. Now, notes to consolidated financial statement. Again, most important thing, because whatever that you are not able to understand as far as the company's performance is concerned, right? How did this revenue come into picture? What is where is the calculation of this account receivable and inventories, right? Everything comes from notes to accounting policies or notes to balance sheet, notes to financial statement, right? Look at this income tax, financial instrument, restricted cash, employee stock option, right? All these things, then company kind of, trickles down. It basically gives you in-depth analysis, how much money company has made, all that stuff, right? So this is what you need to understand. Okay, step by step, step by step. So I'll repeat here for you guys. What you see here is all the financial statement, all the numbers. But how these numbers are coming up, what drives this number, everything will be told to you guys. Everything will be written in the notes. So these notes are going to be damn important. So even if you look at revenue recognition, they must have explained how did they recognize the revenue according to the FASB. This is Financial Accounting Standard Board. That's United States of America. Right? Step by step. So you can read these things. This is the Bible. You will get everything. So this is, so maybe you have a little bit of item on your income statement. Let's say employee stock option expenses. We will not get into what is ESOP expenses and all. But then if you want to understand that company said, okay, the employee stock expenses are nothing but dollar, let's say 100,000. How did they calculate that? You might see the answer here. Okay, fine. So over here, let's have a look at this. This is the calculation of earning per share. Now, if you look at here, if you look at the income statement, what you have is you have one second. You have your EPS. Okay, you have your EPS. Okay, you all know if EPS formula. If you don't know, then probably you can. We anyway going to have that in the financial statement analysis lecture. EPS is one of sort of it's one of the important aspect to sort of understand company's performance. So I will be explaining you in the financial statement analysis lecture how do you calculate EPS and whatever is required to calculate EPS. Look at this numerator. I'll give an example of EPS. Net income. Okay, it's a very shortcut divided by number of outstanding shares. Now, this is where you get that information from. So you have seen the EPS in income statement. Over there, they have given the final calculation. How did they do it? How did they get that number? Calculation are shown here, and that's the reason all these notes are important. Don't worry. In the financial statement analysis of Apple, I will be showing you how they have actually done it. Okay, let's move ahead, and that's you will be able to get sort of a story, or you will be able to get information of everything that is there on your financial statement. That is quite important. Okay, now again, this is something happening in the revenue, so this is something we will be looking at a little bit later. Let's have a look at other things. Okay, now look at this note 3. Okay, if you look at your balance sheet, on your balance sheet you will see this item: cash equivalents and marketable securities. And you will see, let's just say for 2019, you will see, let me take any number. Let's just say you have seen this number on balance sheet. But how Apple calculated this number? Here is the calculation. So you're getting the point. So balance sheet will show you only the number, but annual report, all these notes will give you calculation. Excuse me, calculation of that number, that's for sure. Okay, so this is what you have to understand. Again, derivative information is given here. Let's go step by step. Account receivable, I told you, right? They will be giving you the information about account receivable, right? PPE, property, plant and equipment, detailed breakup is given out here. So all these things are going to help you. Okay, other income, the breakup is given here. Other non-current liabilities, the breakup is given here. Income tax. On your income statement, you will see directly income tax as a number, but how the tax has been calculated is something coming from here. Deferred tax assets and liabilities. Let's go step by step. Okay, debt. This is about what sort of companies, what sort of debt company has, debt through commercial paper, term debt, loans and all, and what is the percentages of loan. So this is something important for you as a financial analyst to understand what sort of loan company has taken. Is this loan a sort of a cheap loan or it's quite costly? Now, why I need to understand this is because you also need to understand how much company is paying as an interest, because your interest is nothing but an expense. Okay, again, in financial statement analysis, these things will get even more clear. I'm just giving you sort of an understanding. Shareholders' equity, everything is explained here. Let's go step by step. This is something you should not be doing. This is ESPP. ESPP is a sort of part of employee stock option. So employee stock option, when you talk about, you get options from companies. So you get ESOP, you get restricted stock awards. You also get employee stock option purchase plan and restricted stock units. So under ESOP, there are a lot of types out there. So, I mean, like, if you have an idea, you can go about this, else you can just leave it. Okay, let's move ahead. What do we have? Uh, 1 second. See contingencies. See Qualcomm. They're talking about some lawsuit against Qualcomm. This is something you need to understand very well. The following table shows information by reportable segment. This is your geographical revenue, I would say, final profit. 1 second. Okay, this is something is not required. Not required. Let's move ahead. That's it. That's it. That's it. So that's how you need to kind of check your annual report step by step. All the information that you're going to be looking at in your annual report. This is all that you need to check. And that's the reason, as I always say, that annual report can actually give you a lot of information. Now we will be talking about annual report in the financial statement analysis. That's FSA, and we will be doing this in financial modeling. So anybody who is going to be performing financial modeling, or anybody who is an analyst, you guys would definitely need that annual report. So annual report will always help you to do two things very well. One is financial statement analysis, another is financial modeling, like sort of evaluation that you want to do in the future.